Hey guys, so let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about development speed. This is a big one, but I'm going to share something that I want to talk to you who are most likely who are programmers or engineers and so forth. And maybe if you're a professional and you've been doing this for a little while, you will recognize yourself in this. So one of the things that is very, very tricky for what we call business people, at least all the people I know call business people, and just let's define business people. In the IT world, you usually have two camps. You have the engineers, which are like the people who have the tech savvy knowledge, like the programmers, the operations guys, the IT support, all of these people. These are usually the technically savvy people, and then you have the business people, which are usually your project manager, your designer, your business developers, your sales guys or girls, and so forth and so forth. These are usually the people who manage the rest of the app, the rest of the company, or the company specific employees. Now, the thing is that most of the people that I work with and have worked with, even with the really large with larger companies, such as Ticketmaster, it's very often that you work as an engineer with business people who don't actually have any type of they don't have any knowledge whatsoever of IT. They don't understand, they know nothing about code, they know nothing about software development. It's actually one of the, I will argue that in my world, it's actually a big problem, because the core issue is that it's kind of like having a general. If you have a project manager that is not doesn't have any background in IT or hasn't done any type of software development, to me it's very much like having a general who has never been to war. And it's not a deal breaker. You can still be a great project manager, but it does make a very big difference if you have somebody who has IT skills. And this is going to be shown in what I'm going to tell you now. The biggest assumption that most people I work with, and I have worked with in the past, is that development speed can be increased by adding people to the project. Now, this is a big problem, because what happens usually at the board level and these high, because the decisions of budget and stuff like that is being made by people who have absolutely no idea how it is to actually write software and all the daily complications of writing software. You find that they believe that just throwing money at the problem or doing such things will give them a lot more for usually it's about speed, get them more development speed, but that's actually not true. I made a video about microservices versus monoliths a little while ago, where I kind of explained the problem that you're facing, because the thing is that even if you hire 50 developers to start working on your code base, if you have a monolithic application, odds are that you won't be able to get them to work as effectively with the project, because they're going to be in a situation where they're going to have to touch the same code, and they're working on different things, which will cause all these conflicts in merge requests, and you will have all these administrative daily problems when you have that many people. And that's actually the reason why microservices is, in my opinion, that's really why they came to be popular. It's because when you have a lot of people working on the same code, the problem is it becomes more administrative than anything else. And that's what microservices will help you do. If you have these isolated small projects, then everybody can work. You can just add more and more people in general to the project, and they can still give you as much theoretical speed as they can possibly produce. But when they don't have that situation, they're limited by basically that that they can't work on the exact same code at the same time. There's usually a sweet spot for these things. I can tell you from my company, for example, we had we have our, our big roadmap features that we're working on, and there's 4 people in my team. And basically what we did was that and you kind of get this with experience, we knew that, all right, so this workload here, it's high priority, and our project manager came to us and said, we want everybody to be on this. We should all work on it at the same time. And I said, no, that's dumb. It's really dumb. We can't do that. And she kind of said, why? Because if you do that, you will have one of 2 things. Most likely both are going to happen. You're going to have 2 people who can effectively work on the code, and then you will have 2 people who have to sit and watch what the other 2 are doing, or do some very arbitrary small thing, because frankly you have too many people working on the same thing. Think of it as building a model plane. The work effort the logistics of building a model plane will only allow 1, maximum 2 people to work on that model plane at one time, because if you add more people, you're just going to get in each other's way. So you have to find that sweet spot for the workload. How many people, how can you slice things up so that you can effectively work with as many people as possible on the problem? That's what microservices will do. It gets very complicated. You trade, you buy this development, the ability to add more people to the project with more complexity for the project. But it is a very good way to solve this type of problem. But it should only be done if you know exactly what you're doing, and it should only be done if you have the type of amount, the amount of people that is required to basically work in that way, which is not the case usually. Anywho, so that's what I told her, and she kind of went, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we sliced it up. So we had, the sweet spot was 2 people to work on the main feature, and then me and my other colleague, we took the second, the feature that would be delivered after that, which also was at roughly the sweet spot of 1 to 2 people. So this is kind of me trying to give you that advice. If you're working with people who want, it's basically, it's a mental mistake that people without any understanding of code make. It's the same type of, think of it as, going to business school and being taught all these business concepts and, productivity and so forth, but you're being taught with the example of factories and physical products and stuff, like an assembly lines type of mentality. But software is not an assembly line mentality. So it's, in my experience, these people aren't dumb. They're extremely intelligent and wonderful to work with. You just have to kind of educate them a little bit about how it is for you as a developer to work on a code base. And we saw this in a project that I was delivering just the other day, where we had a lot of issues where basically we had been forced, more or less, to work more people on the same piece of code at the same time. So we had to split it up in a way that made absolutely no sense, at least to nobody, because the issue was that had a single person worked on it, the feature would have been delivered in roughly the same amount of time, maybe a little bit slower, but there wouldn't have been any mistakes, because you sliced up a very small piece of something into so small pieces that it actually caused more confusion than it would have done otherwise. My colleague started working on the data model, and I started working on the interface, and my third colleague worked on another interface. And that caused a very big issue, because now 2 people are working without knowing what data they're going to get and so forth, which caused a lot of problems and misunderstandings. And we were kind of trying to synchronize 3 people for a piece of work that maybe just 1 person should have started working on. So you may not think that these things matter, but trust me, when you start working professionally, these things start to matter. They sound silly, but they do make a lot of difference, because let's just try to remember that to be productive as a software developer, it's actually more. It's about more than just being fast and writing good code. Trust me, usually what happens, in my experience, it's very rarely about writing the code. Sometimes it's about writing code. and that's a problem. But most of the time, it's actually about structuring the work effort and actually understanding what you're going to build. Just think about that. Usually, the problem is not to write good code. The problem is to understand what it is you're actually supposed to be doing.